I'm not sure if the corona is still in Ghana yet. If it is, like by now, all of us would have gone.
Tonight on Joy News Prime, if you have persistently denied that the country has COVID-19 or that the country is out of woods, then you have to do some rethinking. Joy News brings you exclusive burial of 5 patients.
The hectic work that we're going through here. This is not only today. We started this from the last 7th day up to today. Today we're burying 5 at a go. We're going to bury more. We only want to alert the public. The COVID is real. And therefore, protect yourself, observe the national protocol measures to protect yourself, protect your family, and let's protect the country image as a whole.
Also, health officials at the East COVID-19 Treatment Center worried about the increasing symptomatic cases of the infection.
We used to see a lot more asymptomatic persons in the past, but now we are seeing more symptomatic people now, which is a worry.
Ranking member on Parliament's Health Committee, Kwabena Minta-Kando, is however worried Ghana's healthcare system will soon become overwhelmed by COVID-19 cases.
That the trend, if we are not very careful, at a point in time, we will see more dead bodies in the streets, just like we saw in other countries.
And in business,
research and policy think tank CATS Ghana describes NCA's policy to control MTN's market dominance as lame.
Current NCA Act is very lame in addressing the issues of competition and antitrust in the market.
And later in the bulletin, farmers in the Afram Plains area are afraid challenges they have experienced as a result of COVID-19 restrictions will cause food shortages this year.
If you take the thing to market and the customers are determining the price for you, what will you do?
My name is Aisha Ibrahim, anchoring Joy News Prime from our studios in Kokomlemle on digital address GA0992539, also on DSTV channel 421, on GoTV channel 144, and also remember we are free to air because we're on DTT. Many thanks for choosing us. In our very first story, Ghana has confirmed 10,358 COVID-19 cases, but there are concerns that an increasing number of COVID-19 patients are reporting their symptoms a little too late. Recoveries are now 3,824 with 48 deaths. This puts active cases at 6,486. Despite high cases being recorded daily, skeptics still doubt that the disease exists.
Do you believe that the virus exists?
No, it's not. If it is, like by now, all of us would have gone. I'm not sure if the corona is still in Ghana yet.
Mami, come, let's stop deceiving each other. Let's just be realistic. At least, out of the 1,000 or 10,000 people that Nigeria has, why can't we identify one single one as a friend? That's it. And every day they can tell us the number keep increasing. Then they'll say that the death 20, 80. Why can't you then show us a single person that has it? If you have fever now, they'll say you have corona. No, mistakenly you face it. They say it's corona. People are dying of hunger and they'll say it's corona. Let's just be realistic. Let's say the truth.
Health officials at the East Municipal Hospital's COVID-19 treatment center in Accra have expressed worry about the increasing symptomatic cases of the infection. It has now been confirmed that more COVID-19 positive persons are now being hospitalized because more persons are showing symptoms and falling sick from the virus. Head of our health desk, Fred Smith, has more.
The country has recorded up to around 300 cases on a daily basis, many of these showing symptoms of the infection, contrary to how the virus has behaved in the past 2 months.
It's important that we continue to maintain the infection prevention control practices, using our face masks, washing our hands frequently, not touching our faces without washing our hands, keeping to the social distance protocols. When we do all these things, we will see fewer and fewer cases. Now, what we realize is more people are getting ill from COVID-19. We used to see a lot more asymptomatic persons in the past. But now we are seeing more symptomatic people now, which is a worry. It shows that more people are staying home till they are really ill before they present to the health facility and are diagnosed with COVID. So again, if you are home and you have a fever, you have a cough, you have difficulty breathing, please don't just stay at home or buy paracetamol from the drugstore. Get to a health facility, get the appropriate clinical diagnosis, and if it's COVID, we can start treatment early so that you can have a full recovery.
Joy News understands all treatment centers in Accra are now stretched, and some health professionals who've tested positive have been told to go to Cape Coast for treatment. Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Abwaje, however, denies this.
Currently, as at the last time, Ghana East has a capacity of 100 beds. As at 2 yesterday, we had just about 62 patients there.
But pharmacist and fellow at the Center for Democratic Development, Dr. Kwame Asiedu Sapong, says he has information to support the report that the country's health systems may be indeed stretched.
We are hearing that more people are coming to hospital with symptoms.
Ranking member on Parliament's Health Committee, Kwabena Mintah Kando, is worried Ghana's healthcare system will soon become overwhelmed by COVID-19 cases, resulting in dead bodies on the streets, as has been seen in other countries. He told the press in Parliament House that disclosures by officials at the Ghana East Treatment Center show the facility is receiving more cases, evidence that the country is losing the fight against COVID-19.
There are emerging signs that the health system will soon be overwhelmed by this pandemic. And I'll give you a typical example. The medical director of the Ghana East Treatment Center has been reported to have stated that the hospital has begun to receive many symptomatic patients as compared to the initial asymptomatic cases. That those who are showing signs of COVID-19 are becoming more than those who are not showing signs. This situation will overwhelm our health system, and fatalities will go beyond the 48 cases. So if you are not very careful, very, very soon, our health system will be overwhelmed as we move to more people showing the symptoms of COVID-19. Government should therefore move beyond lifting of restrictions for political gains and then listen to advice by public health experts on the management of COVID-19 in this country. Looking at the trend, if we are not very careful, at a point in time, we will see more dead bodies in the streets, just like we saw in other countries.
Joining me via Zoom is virologist and senior research fellow at the Center for Cell Biology at the University of Ghana, Dr. Peter Kwashi, for more on this. Good evening to you, Doc. Many thanks for your time.
Good evening to you and to your listeners.
Doc, it looks to me that people are now becoming symptomatic. Compared to the previous data we had, that many people were asymptomatic. Per your research on the virus, is the virus mutating?
So initially we did sequencing, and we saw that at that point, which was very early, and I think the virus had only been in the country for about 1 month, we saw that it hadn't mutated a lot. And actually our results also point to why, possibly to why we didn't have a lot of cases, because we had the strains that we detected at that point. Looking at the global picture, those strains tend to be linked to lower symptomatic cases. So as I speak, we've just loaded another sequencing run, which is looking at the samples from another 36 patients. So once we get that, we'll be getting that later this week and analyzing it next week. We'll know whether the strains that are circulating now and have mutated to become more pathogenic, or we'll know if there's an introduction of a more pathogenic strain, as we've seen in Nigeria, where they seem to be having a few more deaths than we have.
But what you know, I know you're a scientist, you work with figures and data, but per what you know, can you pick a guess as to what is actually happening with the surging of figures?
So there's two possibilities. The first possibility, which we'll know the answer to in a few days' time, is that the virus has mutated and it's become more pathogenic, or there's a detection of a new strain, one of the strains which have been linked to increasing pathogenicity in Europe. That's one possibility. The next possibility, and I would say more likely, is that because now we are having more cases and our official number is 10,358, but likely, as we've seen in Europe, when the official number is X, the real asymptomatic infection is maybe twice that. So probably in the public, we have 20, 30,000. So now when you have a larger population who have it, a few more of them will become symptomatic. So this is more of a symptom of having more infections. So as you have more people infected, then even if it's 1%, 1% of a lot is more than 10% of just a few. So,
per your research, the last time, indeed, you're waiting for the latest one, so you can also conclude on that. But per your research, what would you recommend? Should we change strategy as to the way we're fighting the virus?
So, I think so far, looking at the case fatality ratios in Ghana, I think the medical management seems to be doing quite well compared to elsewhere in the world. Of course, like I said, it also seems to be linked to the virus that we have. In terms of as a scientist, I can say that you can't talk to many of us who would strictly agree to relaxing social distancing protocols. The rising cases point to the fact that social distancing protocols, even when they were in effect, were probably not being followed. And that's something that as a country we have to look at, and we have to enforce it more.
Well, I'm grateful for your time, Dr. Peter Kwashi. So how long are you going to take to conclude on this latest research you're conducting?
So, like I said, we loaded that run yesterday, and usually it takes a few days for that to happen, and then probably by the end of next week we should have some preliminary results on that.
And what difference will that research make to our fight against this virus?
So that would tell us if we have the same viruses that we detected in April still circulating, whether we have new mutations, and we expect to have new mutations, but we'll see whether those new mutations are linked to our having more symptomatic patients compared to before. The other thing I'll say is that in our early infections, we had a lot of younger patients. So it would be interesting when we look at the clinical data to see how many of them, if we are shifting from younger patients to older patients, then that would explain why you have more symptomatic infections.
I'm extremely grateful for your time. Dr. Peter Kwashi is a virologist and senior research fellow at the West Africa Center for Cell Biology at the University of Ghana. Today, 5 people who could not survive the disease were buried. They are part of the 48 people reported dead from the disease, which has so far registered 10,358 cases in Ghana. Personnel from the Environmental Health Directorate of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly laid the 5 to rest at the Awudome Cemetery here in Accra. My colleague Komla Adom tagged along.
I've been joined now by Director of Public Health here at the AMA, Madame Florence Kuchi. I'm sure you all remember Madame Florence Kuchi because of a Joy Clean Ghana campaign. She's a friend to the station. She's going to just briefly tell us what we are seeing here and what today's exercise is all about. Thank you very much, Madame Kuchi.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you, Kaula.
Okay, so Today, just briefly tell us what we are going to do and then what we see in the background.
It is our duty, should any of the patients passes on through the disease, it is our duty to give the person a dignified burial. As part of our work, we are preparing, as you can see behind, they are mixing chlorine. That is a chemical we use during the burials.
It's interesting for me. I am curious to find out how all of this unfolds. But then I see, how many members of the team are you deploying for today's exercise? How many bodies are we burying, for example?
So today's exercise, we are burying 5 bodies. And then today's team, we have 11. We have 11 people that are going to do this work. So we will dispatch part of them to the cemetery and part of them to the mortuary. They will go and work, place the bodies, those that are donating body bags, let me say coffins. We put the body in the body bag before we place them inside the coffin. Then there will be somebody to escort the bodies from the first site to the cemetery for the burial team to also start doing the burial. Then they will move from the other hospital to the next hospital to go and pick the others, because the bodies are not all at one place. Yeah.
Finally, before we move on from here, we know that 48 people have died so far. And will you just briefly give us a breakdown? How many have you buried so far? How many are still outstanding?
32 families have come to register for burial of their bereaved families. We buried 16 for now, and today we are burying 5.
So this is the 37 Military Hospital. A short time ago, the AMA environmental workers were at the morgue to take 3 bodies.
This is the 5th burial for COVID-19 victims. And burials are strictly supervised and monitored by the Environmental Health Department of the Metropolitan Assembly of Accra. So today we're burying 5 bodies at a go. This is a set of 4 bodies, 3 bodies from here, 37 Military Hospital here. We're moving to the Awudome Cemetery to give them a befitting burial there. From there, we're going for another body at the Rich Hospital. That is 2 bodies there, and do the same to them.
So the officials of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly Environmental Health Department are currently in a convoy with the bodies of 3 individuals who succumbed to COVID-19. And as you can see, it is we're moving at breakneck speed, because the officials who are supervising this exercise in their PPEs must be suffocating by now, because they've been in the PPE for quite some time, more than an hour. And so we are blitzing through the streets of Accra, headed for the Awudome Cemetery. You can hear from the background the sirens blaring, the hearses and the ambulances. And this is an exercise being heavily supervised by the Public Health Directorate of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly. Inside the Awudome Cemetery proper, the dugouts have been created. As you can see from behind me, 2 coffins, which has the individuals who have succumbed to the virus. That is where they're going to be, interred. And this is, again, I have to stress, a very supervised process by environmental workers. So what you see there right now are the environmental officials removing a 3rd coffin from the hearse to add to the 2 that are already here, so that burial process will be quickly conducted. Again, this is heavily supervised by environmental workers. This is certainly not an easy job, if you ask me, because if you have been in a PPE like I am before, you would appreciate that wearing this and staying in it for more than 30 minutes can be a chore. And these people have been wearing this for more than 2 hours, just ensuring that these bodies are properly disposed of. I will attempt to get a quick word from Mr. Asitanga just before they finish this particular phase of the exercise. Mr. Asitanga, yes. We see this is not an easy exercise at all.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's a challenge. And that is a call to duty by the Environmental Health Department of Accra Metro Assembly, Metro Public Health. This is not only today. We started this from the last 7th day up to today, and we are still on it. Lot is there. We persistently carry this exercise every week. And today we're burying 5 at a go. We're going to bury more. Saturday we have another burial. And it's going to continue and continue. We only want to alert the public. The COVID is there. The COVID is real. And therefore protect yourself. Observe the national protocol measures to protect yourself, protect your family, and let's protect the country image as a whole.
If you thought COVID did not exist, a word to a wise is enough. Now, food producers in the Farm Plains area are afraid challenges they have experienced as a result of COVID-19 restrictions will cause food shortages this year. The Farm Plains Enclave is one of Ghana's main food growing areas, popular for the cultivation of staples like maize. However, some of the farmers say the uncertainty around when the virus would go away forced them to plant less than half of food they would normally plant. Here's a report by Justice Baidu.
Coronavirus may not be leading the headlines as it used to, but its negative impact linger on. This is Eche Amanfrom in the Afram Plains. This small village is yet to record any case of the virus, and yet farmers like Ojasi Amlade are already seeing the impact on their farming job.
We lost everything. We have to give what we've already planted away at almost nothing.
Like many of his colleagues here, he planted less than half of the maize he would usually plant because he is not sure if he would be able to sell the produce.
The sickness has destroyed a lot. If we take our produce to the market, the people who come to buy are even scared. We suffer to even get a car. It has become a problem that we don't even have money to buy food. Now we suffer to get a fertilizer, and we can't even buy it. It's a problem. How can we plant?
In the Afram Plains, 2 jobs are the mainstay of the people. Farming aside, fishing employs almost the remaining chunk. When government announced relief packages for people hit by COVID-19 restrictions, farmers were not included. So too were fishermen. And yet, these two make up for nearly half of the country's workforce.
Because of the disease, those who come and buy, they were not coming in their numbers. Just only few people will come, and they feel the price that they like, they will give it to you. If you take the thing to market and the customers are determining the price for you, what will you do?
No one is certain yet when and how COVID-19 would go. But for the farmers and fishermen of Eche Amanfrom, there's even more uncertainty on what it would leave for their source of livelihood. Justice Baidu, Joy News, Eche Amanfrom in the Afram Plains.
And in the studio, my name is Aisha Ibrahim. Now, the National Democratic Congress has withdrawn its request asking the Supreme Court to rule that the Electoral Commission does not have the power to compile a new voters register. This was after the court had asked the party to make a choice on which of its reliefs it wants to pursue. Joseph Akable was in court for Joy News.
The opposition NDC in its case in the court had made the point that the Electoral Commission does not have the power to compile a new register. They also make the point that should the court even rule that the Electoral Commission can compile a new voters register, the EC should allow persons who intend to use the existing voters ID card as proof of identification that they are citizens and they are of 18 years of age should be allowed to use those cards to get onto the electoral roll. The court first asked the lawyers for the NDC to elect one of the reliefs and pursue it instead of pursuing the combined relief of asking for a declaration that the EC cannot compile a register and also asking that it is unconstitutional to exclude the voters ID card. The NDC's lawyers, led by Godwin Tamaklo, opted to abandon the course relating to challenging the powers of the EC to compile a new register, and rather to make the point that the EC should allow others who have the current voters ID card to take part in the registration exercise. The court then proceeded to hear legal arguments from the parties in the case. Deputy Attorney General Godfrey Adami told the court that the EC should be allowed to correct its own error, since it has admitted that indeed it allowed persons and trained its officials not to obey CI 72. That, he said, is evidence that indeed persons who are with their cards, some of whom acquired it through ways which cannot be trusted, and that should be evidence that the court should take note of. The NDC insists that no evidence has been shown that indeed individuals who are not supposed to be on the electoral roll are on the roll, and so they cannot proceed to say that they shouldn't use the voters register. After listening to the arguments, the court adjourned proceedings to June 23 to deliver its judgment, 7 days before the EC has slated to carry out its compilation of a new voters register. Reporting for Joy News on the Law Court Complex, my name is Joseph Akable.
Now, First Deputy Majority Whip in Parliament Matthew Nyendam says the NDC's decision to withdraw request asking the Supreme Court to rule that the EC does not have power to compile a new voters register is a sign that the party will lose the main case when the court rules later this month. He says the move today means the NDC did not think through the issues properly before filing the case at the Supreme Court. He's also been dismissing concerns that the huge security presence at the courts was an attempt to intimidate those who wanted to show up at the premises.
I think it's a good call by the Supreme Court. And like I said, common sense will tell me that obviously the NDC didn't have a case to go to court to pray the court to stop the Electoral Commissioner from their mandated and constitutionally mandated work, telling them not to compile a new voters register.
So for you, does the new directive mean anything at all in terms of how the eventual outcome of the case?
Yeah, yes, it really means something to me, because if you go and you are telling the court to stop Electoral Commissioner from compiling a new voters register, and the court is telling you you should choose between the two, it actually tells you that they are sick of indecision. They have not decided well. If they have decided well, they should have told the court that we need both reliefs. But at the end of the day, they decided to drop that aspect, which means that they never thought through by filing that relief. And secondly, it also gives me a hope that the NDC never thought through the first one. The second one too, actually, they never thought through it, and they will not win on that matter. So who is intimidating who? Are we talking about intimidating the judges, intimidating the Electoral Commissioner, or the NDC, or the MPP? We are all Ghanaians. Those military people, or whatever you call them, the security people you saw around, are all Ghanaians. And for that matter, they are protecting a state institution, they are protecting you, they are protecting me, they are protecting NDC, they are protecting MPP. There is no intimidation.
We're still live on Joy News Prime. Remember, Joy News Prime is free to air because we're on digital terrestrial TV. And still to come, in business research and policy think tank, CATS Ghana describes NCA's policy to control MTN's market dominance as lame.
The current NCA Act is very lame in addressing the issues of competition and antitrust in the market.
There is more when we return with business. And it's time now for business. Sandra Pele is here. Hi, Sandra.
Hello, Aisha.
What's up in business?
A lot. I mean, you know, the NCA was saying that they want to check MTN's market dominance, but experts are warning that's not the right way to go.
Take it away, Sandra.
All right. Celebrating 25 years of joy. My name is Sandra Esenamafene. Let's do business research and policy think tank CATS Ghana has warned of negative consequences if government presses ahead with legislation that checks telecom market dominance. Describing the policy as lame, Director of CATS Ghana, Apia Kusia Domako, says the move by the National Communication Authority could serve as a disincentive for giant companies to continue investing in the country's economy.
The current NCA Act is very lame in addressing the issues of competition and antitrust in the market. We need to have the draft Competition and Fair Trade Practices Bill of 2019 to go to Parliament, so that, when that law is passed, it can better address the issues happening in the telecom sector than the measures being put forward by the Communication Ministry.
Assuming the NCA decides to proceed unheeded to this maybe policy advice, looking into the future, what do you think is the possible implication on investments in the telecoms industry?
I think, like I said, MTN will scale down their level of investment. They will only be will be raising any rent from their current investment. And when the other firms that are also not investing, they also probably not also invest further. So the telecom sector will die, and then Ghana, to take you an hour to even download a single email because there's no investment in the sector. So I think that the regulator has to be very careful to ensure that whatever action that it takes, it's taken in a good faith, in a way that will be a win-win for the investor, the industry, and also the consumer.
Leadership of the National Board for Small-Scale Industries, NBSSI, says Ashanti region has the highest number of applications for government stimulus package for businesses, a little over 110,000, which constitutes 28.6% of total applications of 170,000 are from the Ashanti region. Executive Director of NBSSI, Kushiyanki Aye, tells Prince Apia in the following report that disbursement will soon begin.
According to data released from the CAP Business Support Scheme online portal on June 5, 2020, 28.6% of total applications are medium, small, and micro enterprises coming from the Ashanti region. It is followed by Central Region with 13%, then Greater Accra 12%, Eastern Region 11.5%, Volta, Bono East, Western North, Ahafo, Upper East and West, Savannah, Oti and Northeast regions all recording less than 5% of the applications. The scheme received over 170,000 successful registrations on the online portal, with about 65% of this number successfully completing applications.
We have registered, if I might not be mistaken, closely about Ashanti region, roughly 600 to 1,000.
Reasons for the differences in applications have been partly attributed to population distribution and the concentration of major economic centers in Ghana where MSMEs operate. Kushiyanki Aye is Executive Director for MBSSI.
We have quite a number, but the point I'm making is that there's a lot of applications coming through from Ashanti. That shows that there's potential and that there are people who are interested in it. So it's good to, as I mentioned, engage with them.
The MBSSI says due diligence on the successful applications is ongoing and disbursement will begin shortly.
You know, most of the times when we do programs, we stay in Accra. We felt that this is a good time to go around, go to the community, see what their real problems are. So we've been to the Central region, we are here in Ashanti, we'll go to Bono region, get a better understanding of what their needs are and what it is that we can specifically do to build the process and make the process better. And also to take the challenges so that we can address them. If you are sitting in the office, you don't get all those challenges.
Prince Apia reporting.
Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority says the newly deployed Integrated Customs Management System, ICOMS, is efficient. Though Customs does admit the system had take-off challenges, it says these were immediately addressed. It denies grappling with teething problems as being asserted by the Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders. Here's a report from our Tema correspondent, Kwame Yanka.
The new system was deployed at the Takoradi and Tema ports a few months ago. Customs, Ghana Link, among other names behind the newly integrated customs management system, ICOMS, have come under intense pressure from the port community. Responding to concerns of freight forwarders in Tema, however, Customs maintains its grounds that ICOMS is efficient. One critical area of concern is the bill of entry, which freight forwarders want addressed. Emmanuel Ohini Asante is Commissioner in charge of Accra Collection and Chairman of the implementation team of ICOMS.
ICOMS does that automatically and generates a new bill of tax. This is a more effective way of managing changes in exchange rate rather than the post-entry as was the case in the old system.
Meanwhile, Customs admits challenges with the tax identification number from the onset, but that, it says, has been addressed subsequently.
It is not an issue where we will flatly deny that there were no challenges. Indeed, there were some system challenges with the tin populating in the ICOMs, which was detected very early to resolve, and we resolved it. And since then, the ICOMs has been populated with the tin.
It is the expectation of the GRA that by end of year, it will take 48 hours to clear cargo from date of discharge to date of release. Kwame Yankers reports for Joy Business.
Thanks so much for watching. I'm back with more business news in the second part.
Yeah, Missy Adegoke is with the BBC and has joined us via Zoom for a short discussion. Good evening to you, Missy. Thanks for your time on Joy News Prime. Hello, Missy. You're on Joy News Prime.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Great. Since the BBC launched this fake news project, what are some of the ridiculous claims you have debunked?
So we've seen a lot of claims about fake news on the continent, and it covers a lot of different categories: cures, myths, conspiracy theories. I do think it's important that we don't label any claim as ridiculous, because many people from different walks of life can fall victim to this fake news. And we're in very unprecedented times with coronavirus, where people are afraid and they want to keep themselves safe. And that's part of the reason why we decided to launch this project. We have had instances where there have been certain political figures who have been pronounced dead from coronavirus, and they've had to release statements saying that they're not dead. We've seen a whole lot of different types of fake news about this coronavirus.
And since the BBC launched this fake news, I'm also being told, or we've seen one of your stories of a taxi driver who said coronavirus fake news nearly made him consider committing suicide. I'm curious to know what his story is.
So that was a really harrowing story that we worked on, and that came about just as the coronavirus was coming into Nigeria. There was a rumor that went viral on WhatsApp about a man who had driven the first coronavirus patient from Lagos to a neighboring state and was demanding a ransom not to spread the virus further. So as you saw in that tape, we went to Benin City to meet this man, Jude. He hadn't been in Lagos for the last 3 years. He doesn't even drive a taxi. But because of that rumor, his life had turned upside down. He was getting death threats. He didn't feel safe walking around on the streets anymore. He had to go everywhere with friends or family. It had really impacted him. He has a wife, a young child, and he got to the point where he did feel as though he wanted to take his life. It was that serious for him.
Wow. So beyond the taxi driver, I'm sure you might have encountered other stories of people who have gone through one thing or the other because of fake news. What has been the impact of coronavirus fake news?
Well, I think what we've seen throughout this project is just that people are extremely scared of coronavirus. As we all know, there are new discoveries being made every day. There's still a lot that we don't know about the spread of the virus. As we currently know, there is no cure, but there are a lot of fake rumors posing to be cures or treatments. And there's a likelihood that people will go out and try these things just to try to prevent themselves from contracting the virus. But this is very dangerous. And we've seen this in Nigeria previously during the 2014 to 16 Ebola crisis. There were lots of rumors on social media about drinking salt water or bathing in salt water. And a lot of people ended up getting sick. So that's part of the reason why we put this project out there, because we want people to be informed so that they can make the right choices about their health.
So I'm thinking this way, and I want us to do this. Now, considering the negative impact of the fake news about coronavirus, what do you think? Do you think African leaders should flirt with the idea of legislating against the phenomenon?
So this is a really interesting topic that comes up quite a lot. How do we cope with this spread of misinformation? Should governments get involved? As a journalist, I'm always going to value and prioritize the need for freedom of speech and expression. I think that they're essential for thriving democracies. But this fake news is a real problem on the continent. But I think that in order to counter this, we need to tackle the fake information with accurate information. And that's what we're trying to do with projects like ours. One of the major keys to our project is that we are showing people our methodology. So we're not just telling you that this claim is fake. We're showing you how we found that it's fake. So if that means that we've used certain tools like reverse image search, or we've had to call certain people, we want people to see that these are the steps that we're taking to debunk these things. And if you like, as a private citizen, you can use some of these tools in your own life also. So I think it's more about countering negative information with accurate information.
I'm indeed grateful, and I've enjoyed my few minutes conversation with you.
Thank you so much.
Yemisi Adegoke. She's with the BBC Project Against Fake News. And to other stories, 2 days after one person died in Odorna here in Accra, my colleague Nancy Emefajodozi went back to find out how residents adversely are affected by the floods and how they're coping. Here is what she found.
It's a brand new day, but still a bad day for people living in flood-prone areas. Streets are muddy, with puddles everywhere. As we move through Odorna, our attention is drawn to a pile of what appeared to be garbage. We were wrong. These items are worth hundreds of Ghana cedis: rice, toiletries, diapers, and a half sack of sugar. There is nothing to salvage. The owner, who will not speak to me, says she had cried her heart out since the incident happened. But just 30 meters away is a story building with black poly bags packed in front of it.
Some of the stuff from my room. So these are some of the dresses. My bed sheets, my pillows. In fact, this is some of the stuff in my room. I've thrown some of away, and these are the rest left. And this
Bright has been living here for 2 years. He was expecting the rains, but not with the disaster it came with.
My shoes, the shoes some are even gone, and these are like some of my sugar kunku, like what I use for my provisions. You can see I have a little bit of sugar inside. These are some of the rubbishes, like
so these are what's this
dress. These are my clothes, like my jeans. You can see this is like a correct dress I bought some time ago, like I think a week ago. So these are my clothes. Everything is gone. See, everything is gone.
We took a tour through his room, which was now empty, except his rice cooker, table, and wardrobe.
The TV is gone.
The ring to the TV.
Like it's broke. This is like the rice cooker. They were able to get it. This is where my home theater was.
And where's the home theater?
Oh, it's damaged. It's outside. When we go, I'll show it to you. And I was having my provisions and some other personal stuff. My documents, everything is gone. The wardrobe. This is my wardrobe. There's nothing in it. It's empty.
We are shown some markings on the wall indicating water levels in the room on Monday. This height equals 5 feet 3 inches. This begs the question, why did Bright and his roommate sleep?
Somebody gave me a car to use for a Uber. So sometimes we sleep in the car or we hang outside till the next morning. Like yesterday like this, we were just hanging outside because we don't know what actually is happening.
As we walk through the community with many households refusing to speak to the team, we found a collapsed wall of a church. Mami was in the house on Monday when the rains came. But the destruction of the walls was a fraction of the havoc caused by the rain. All church equipment completely destroyed. Not even the offering bowls were spared. John is the caretaker.
The machines and the drums and the speakers are spoiled.
The drums and the speakers and everything?
Everything.
Wow. But, wow, so the sockets, the equipment.
Yes.
The offering bowl is also filled with water. instead of more money.
Many homes, businesses, and churches, like the Divine Healers Church, are still yet to heal.
And that was a report by Nancy Emefa-Duradosi. Now, former Deputy Works and Housing Minister Samson Ahi is urging President Akufo-Addo to intervene and cause the Finance Minister to release funding for dredging of drains to avert more floods. He says the Finance Minister has not released money to the Works and Housing Ministry to undertake the dredging leading to the flooding situation. He accused the NPP government of abandoning drain projects started by the previous government and is urging them to resume work on those projects.
Accra flooded 2 days ago. Someone got electrocuted. Could this have been avoided?
Yes, this could have been avoided if we have taken remedial measures to clear the gutters. To silt the gutters. But we didn't do that. Ministry of Works and Housing didn't do that. The government of Nana Akufo-Addo didn't do that. As we speak, even to issue commencement certificates. Since last year, they have not even issued commencement certificates to Works and Housing Ministry, let alone considering processing to award contracts for the gutters, choke gutters to be desilted. Before we left office, we had started actual work, drainage work with dredge masters at a cost of $51 million. They started some work, and when this government came, they terminated the contract. No money has been released to the ministry for them to also pay the contractor to do actual work. I want to employ the president to have personal interest in what is going on with regards to flooding, because the finance minister has failed us as a country, because he has refused to even release commencement certificates. And the system is said that without commencement certificate, the ministry, honorable attached sitting there, cannot do anything. And so the president should have personal interest in this flood problems that we have in the country.
Although headmasters in the Upper West region have agreed to reopen school second cycle in junior high schools for final year and golden track students later this month, they have penciled many challenges they would want addressed before they go back to the schools. Key among them is security, students' discipline, inadequate food at their stores, and overcrowding at the schools. The headmasters expressed these concerns at a meeting organized by the Upper West Regional Coordinating Council to brainstorm on the best strategies to put in place for the reopening of schools in the region to enable final year students be prepared for the examinations. Joy News' Upper West Region correspondent Rafiq Salam reports.
The meeting brought together municipal and district chief executives, municipal and district directors of education, headmasters and headmistresses of second cycle institutions, and proprietors of private schools in the region. Upper West Region Minister Dr. Hafiz Bin Sali disclosed that confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the Upper West Region remain 22, out of which 21 have fully recovered, leaving one person at a one municipal hospital treatment center whose samples have been sent awaiting results.
Partial opening of schools has been necessitated by the fact that COVID-19 disease will surely be with us for a long time to come. In that regard, our lives must definitely go on. It is for us, therefore, to observe all the recommended World Health Organization's protocols to contain and manage the spread of the disease.
Stakeholders agreed hook, line, and sinker to reopen second cycle and junior high schools for final year and second year golden track students. However, they have some challenges they want addressed before the reopening date.
The students are coming. We will have some of them falling sick with ordinary sickness and other things. We suggest that some health workers should be on standby in the schools so that they can quickly treat the students, especially in those schools where there are no school clinics and sick bays, so as to prevent the students from going unnecessarily to the hospital for even very small issues.
I have girl students
because my school is still a democracy. They will be having it. So I'm going to have over 800 students on campus. How am I going to handle that?
The school is supposed to be a day school, but all the students are being accommodated in the school, 487 of them. And we are taking 178 final year students. They cook for themselves. The students get to town every market day to buy food to come out. This is the situation. What do I do? How can I prevent them from getting to town to buy food? Because they must eat.
Indiscipline of final year students also came to the fore at a meeting which authorities will want to have full control without any interference from their parents.
May I say that this is the time for you, the authorities, to give her the necessary backing so that when we discipline students, the parents will not come disturbing us. Let parents understand that this is a very crucial moment in our lives. COVID-19 has come to stay with us. And so we have to do everything practically possible to ensure that these final year students write their exams and go.
It was also discussed that before the schools reopen, Waste Management Company, Zoom Lion Ghana Limited, in the next couple of days will be disinfecting and fumigating over 800 public and private schools in the region. Emmanuel Volsuri is the Upper West manager of Zoom Lion Ghana Limited.
In all, we are going to disinfect 804 basic schools, as Honorable Regional Minister mentioned in his address. 702 public schools and then 102 private schools. And we will also deploy 850 sprayers across the region.
Reporting for Joy News, Rafiq Salam. Wow.
I'm back here in Accra and in the studio. My name is Aisha Ibrahim, and to a rather sad story. It's been 7 days since we told you the story of Agnes Dogbe. The story of the 43-year-old breast cancer patient facing eviction rallied thousands together as Ghanaians far and near contributed to sponsor her health care. Yesterday, we came to you with hope and gratitude. Your support was uplifting, but unfortunately, it was too late. This morning, Agnes passed away at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital after she developed complications. Host of Prime Morning, Daniel Dazi, and producer Esina Mose will join me shortly for a discussion. But first, let's look at this.
At Waiver Old Barrier, here in Accra, I've come to see someone who has been trapped by poverty and imprisoned by disease. A 43-year-old mother of two who has been suffering from breast cancer for over a year. Can't breathe. Agnes, good morning.
Sorry. Here we are. Are you safe for the how many months? Also, when they're saying anything. For more than.
Abrobosome. Abrafe. Inibuafo. Usafofini. Let Papa cry reject me.
We are then wishing
Oh, dear mommy. Many simple. And this card, mammy, name of Francis. You shall not buy a year and you may. 50 CDs. Oh, Madame Fu. Menene on sitting baby, Miss Meeting baby.
And SIT.
pathetic story there. Daniel Dazi joins me in the studio, and producer Esinam joins us via Zoom. Daniel, you nearly got me tearing there, but what really happened?
So, Aisha, like you said, we brought this story 7 days ago. We were hoping against hope that something positive will come out. So, on Monday, we rushed her to the hospital because she had some complications. Unfortunately, she never returned from the hospital, and we were monitoring her condition. Today, a bit later, at a point today, I heard that she was in critical condition, and unfortunately, she did not make it. So it's very disheartening. It's very pathetic. I think that the only thing I walk away with is knowing that her children are alive and they do have some hope for a better life.
And also, interestingly, we've got so many people donating. So, Esinam, what becomes of the 2 children? Esinam, can you unmute your audio?
Hello, Aisha, can you hear me?
Yes, very well, Esinam.
Okay, apologies for that. We are yet to meet with the family fully. We only met her sister today at the hospital. When she passed, we had to call them to come sign the death certificate. We are yet to meet the larger family. So I'm sure that when we do, we will be able to sit down together and make the best decision suitable for the children. And yes, that's it for now.
And Daniel, I'm curious to know, in all of this, what has the family been saying?
So, well, SNL can also catch us up on that, but very quickly, in the entire conversation that we had, her family abandoned her. They were not picking our calls. They told one of the friends of Agnes point blank that they don't have money to take care of her. Today, after they found that she had passed, a number of them were called, they did not appear.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was just this one lady who came in. And Esna, we were mentioning earlier how she interacted with you when she got to the hospital.
Hello, sorry, I didn't hear that.
The sister, the sibling of Agnes who came to the hospital today.
Yes. First of all, I think it took her many hours to get to the hospital. We had gone there in the morning, we had called her when she passed, and we kept waiting for her forever before she turned up, like some 5 hours later. When she came in, didn't even want to go upstairs to go sign the death certificate. By God's grace, through the kind donation of individuals from here and abroad, we've been able to take care of the bills. All we needed was the death certificate signed by a family member, and she couldn't do that. She didn't want to go to the mortuary to go see the body of the sister. And I had a friend with me, Mr. Christian Namado, who called the brother, and the brother said, oh, he can't come. And that was it. My friend really got angry with him for saying that. But hey, it was quite telling. If she was abandoned when she needed them most, now that she's gone, really, they can't be bothered. I'm sorry to pass judgment on them, but for me, this has been more than just another story. My mom died from cancer. I went through all the processes with her, and I know how painful and how expensive it is. And I also know how it feels like when you have a very ill relative, and they are going through so much, and everyone kind of deserts you. So I could relate to this woman, this story, her kids. So going there last week Tuesday for the first time, and then doing the story on Thursday, and seeing how alone she was, Daniel and I felt quite moved to do the story, to get her help. Unfortunately, help came too late, and we can only hope for the best for the children.
Esinam, I'm sorry for your mom's loss, and I'm very sorry about this loss as well. It's very pathetic, but let's keep up the good work. Daniel, so she talks about a meeting, you're going to finalize.
Yes, so we have to finalize exactly and know what exactly happens to the children. But I just want to make this quick point that in the entire conversation with Agnes last week, as Esinam said, her key complaint, her key worry was her children. Really, she said that she noticed the lump early, sometime last year. She did not go to the hospital because she was worried that she can't work and support her kids. In fact, she was sitting in the hospital when her breast ruptured. It's literally burst like a balloon with a pin in it. Yes, and she said she hid it. I asked her why. She said she did not want the hospital to admit her so that she's kept away from her kids. Children. In fact, during that conversation, she was struggling to piece a sentence together. She'll speak a little and she'll wince in pain. When it got to the point of her kids, she broke down in tears. And so this was one of her key concerns. I feel like the only reason why she agreed to go to the hospital in the first place was that she knew her kids were going to be well taken care of because of the kind donation. So, I mean, apart from everything, this is also to ask permission of our lovely viewers. We came and placed this request before you, and now that Agnes has passed, we'd like to use the funds accrued to support her boys, a 10-year-old and an 11-year-old.
And of course, listening to her, you could just tell that's how far the love of a mother can get. Thank you so much, Daniel Tazi, for putting that story together, and Esinam for producing it. And let's keep up the good work.
Thank you.
We'll take a break on Joy News Prime. We'll return with more.
Welcome back. Very touching story to watch. Our condolences. In other news and business, MPs are urging government to lay before Parliament for approval a policy on tax waivers so the nation does not continue losing money as a result of tax reliefs to various institutions. Parliament over the last 2 days approved more than 18 million Ghana cedis in tax waivers to a number of institutions, including the One District, One Factory initiative. Former Chairman of Parliament's Finance Committee, James Aveji, says there is a need for a harmonization on tax breaks for companies.
If you add the $3.1 million to the earlier amount which was waived by this House, which was $26.9 million, it gives you a figure of over $30 million. So, Speaker, if you convert $30.1 million into Ghana cedi, you are well over 180 million Ghana cedis. This is a huge amount which can do a lot for us as a country. And, Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance promised bringing a policy on waiver to this House. I have raised this issue a number of times. We don't know what is happening in regard to the policy. If we have that in the House and it's referred to the Finance Committee, we need a committee report to see what we can do. Because, Mr. Speaker, waiving over 180 million Ghana cedis for a project, if we have a policy on how to handle waivers, we will then know from day one. We don't even know whether all that we discuss here and we contribute on debates on the floor here is being taken on board by the Ministry of Finance whenever they are doing their negotiations.
Joseph Opoku Gakpo, our parliamentary correspondent, joins me live for more. And Joseph, thanks so much for your time this evening. First of all, what is the absence of a tax waiver policy costing the nation? Hello, Joseph. We can hear you, so if you can unmute your audio, that'll be fine.
I think I just managed to fix that. And
all right. So I was asking earlier, the absence of the tax waiver policy, what is it costing the nation?
A number of such losses have come up, which MPs have repeatedly complained about. So, for example, today, the House approved a tax waiver to the tune of $3.155 million in terms of waivers on VAT, NHIS, GET Fund, in order for the upgrading and rehabilitation of equipment in technical universities, polytechnics, as well as vocational institutions. So it is actually money that's coming from the Export and Import Bank of China, and it's actually a concessional loan. So this $3.15 million that government could have raised that revenue on Netherlands states is actually not getting. Not just that, yesterday Parliament approved a number of such tax waivers. And there was a tax waiver of about $2.2 million to a firm, LK International Company, another tax waiver to the tune of $48,000 to a firm called G's Fresh Point. Again, yes, Parliament approved a number of others, including a $131,000 tax waiver to Favor 01 Limited and a number of others. And those are the concerns that MPs are raising, that when such tax waivers are given without any clear harmonization, then it's revenue to the state that's being lost, which is what we are concerned.
In the video that we just played, Honorable James Aveji mentioned that they have actually requested for that policy to be laid before Parliament. Do we know why it's taking so long for government to lay the policy?
It's very much unclear why it's taking this long, because it's a conversation that's been ongoing for well about 2 years now, including some of the budget reviews that were done when the finance minister came to Parliament and the House was actually requesting that this be done. The indication is that it's still a document that's in the drafting. It has to go through a number of stages from the level of the finance ministry, get clearance from the Attorney General's office, and then at the level of cabinet before it's eventually laid in Parliament for approval. And all of that has to be done even after extensive consultation with various stakeholders in industry and the Ghana Revenue Authority and a number of others. That's how come we get the indication it's still not been done today.
Right. Let's look at the broader picture. I mean, revenue generation. What will a tax waiver policy do for the country's economy?
And so, for example, in the conversation in Parliament, one of the major demands that MPs were making is that if, for example, they are granting tax waivers to companies, they would want to see the returns that would accrue to the state even as the nation loses money, so that if the company is getting tax waiver, for example, under one district, one policy, in order to ensure the creation of employment, then the tracking needs to be done. And that's what the MPs think is actually missing, because then the companies get the tax waivers and its returns that they claim go into their pocket without the state eventually benefiting in terms of job creation and other opportunities and the general expansion of the economy. And so they say that if the policy is laid and clearly things are defined as to who deserves to benefit from tax waivers and all, or harmonize the processes so that it's either the state is gaining those amounts in taxes, or then other opportunities, including job opportunities, are being created for the young people so they don't stay unemployed.
Thanks so much for your time, Joseph, for that update from Parliament. Moving on, the National Buffer Stock says rise to senior high schools is 100% Ghanaian. The CEO, Abdul Hanan Wahab, adds importers are willing to cut down on importation to allow intake from local producers. Ghana has been working on cotton grains imports since 2017, and the country has not imported maize since then.
From 2017, we haven't imported maize into this country. But for rice, we are still importing some quantities of rice simply because the whole rice value chain has to be looked at, which the Minister for Food and Agriculture has set up a technical committee on rice marketing in Ghana to look at it. Because first of all, we have identified that we do produce, but sometimes the quality of what we produce and what comes in, sometimes in terms of the physical, I'm talking about physical quality. You see our Ghana rice or our local rice that has some stones and foreign materials and different color, different varieties in one bag. So these are the issues that we are dealing with, helping them to, have some modern equipment attached to their mills that can, like this, distillers and color sorters. So that is what we are doing, and I'm sure in a few years to come will also close that gap of rice, import. And in the technical committee, is interesting to note that the importers, the technical committee comprises farmers, rice millers, and importers. These are major importers of foreign rice into our country. They are on that committee, and then the financial ADB is also on that committee, Barclays Bank and some other, I think NIBT is also on that committee. So this technical committee on rice marketing in Ghana are working closely with the various stakeholders. The importers are very willing to take certain percentage of what they import locally here. So, but the issue has to do with how do we, fine-tune the quality of what we are doing, also availability.
The market update next in the commodity news. Grateful for your time this evening. You can get more news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. My name is Sandra Esenamapeno. Thanks so much for watching. We have sports up next.
Hello, good evening. My name is Oriku Ampofu, and this is the second belt of sports on Joy News Prime. Well, football is gradually returning in some jurisdictions. Germany led the way, and the first half of the first game in Spain is almost over. However, in Ghana, the story is pretty different, as government have extended restrictions on contact sports to July 31st. Not only the actors are enduring difficulties, but those whose businesses are surrounded by the sport as well. One of such people is Daniel Esiedu, whose sales has dropped and at an all-time low.
The focus of the COVID-19 pandemic has been on the main actors on the pitch, relegating other businesses associated with sports. Daniel Esiedu, CEO of sportswear and equipment company Sportsnet, tells Joy Sports COVID-19 has dropped his sales by 90%.
For now, we can say we are even less than 10% sales because nobody is coming. Since you came here, you could see the whole place is quiet, the street is quiet, nobody is coming. So we are not making sales anyway. We are just depending on our past. And that's what we are really relying on. Only thing we can do is maybe we reduce the staff. We are always two in the shop. So maybe we might do one should come and one should stay. This morning I was home just because at times you drive to the shop and then you go back without any sales. It's just a waste of petrol and stuff. So at times you may just have to keep one person instead of two people in the shop.
With sales dropping by such significant percentage, the survival of most merchandising companies in Ghana is at risk. Mr. Esiedu wants government to extend its 1 billion stimulus package to cover their field.
Since the COVID started, our business, our sports business is like we deal with the clubs, the football clubs, the schools. They buy their volleyballs, soccer balls, their jerseys, and everything from us. So with this, we are having a problem, because the churches also buy trophies for their competitions, their Bible competitions. They are also not functioning. The sports clubs, the keep fit clubs, they are all not functioning. So we are also not functioning because they are not buying. Nobody's doing anything, so we don't have anything. So we are also very, very hit hard. And we hope when there are issues and there are settlements with the companies, we will be also considered as being hit with the COVID, and we might be considered as well.
The COVID-19 pandemic brought sporting activities across the globe to a halt in March this year.
Currently, the Ghana Premier League is on hold, and this evening, just before I did walk into the studio, President of the Ghana Football Association, Kret Okreku, has released a statement addressing some of these issues. And on the stimulus package, he did mention that the GFA are still in contact with the Ministry of Youth and Sports to be able to, come to an agreement to help these clubs in the difficult times as well. And on Congress as well, which was scheduled to happen this month, has also been moved back indefinitely, although government says that 100 people can be allowed to gather in public spaces. Ketekreku believes that adding the media and all the stakeholders for Congress would be probably more than the 100 people allowed. And on the return of the league, which everyone is waiting for, he says that the Executive Council has still given them up till 30th of June, so they would be waiting and also measuring all the impact and taking their time to make a decision as to what the future of the league would be. But still, on the impact of COVID-19 on sports, Yao Sechi, who is the CEO of Right Sports Multimedia, an agency involved in organizing basketball and boxing, and he says the sport has taken a nosedive and will struggle to recover.
Right Sports has been engaged in organizing basketball and boxing competitions. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, they have had to put on hold all their activities. Yao Sechi, CEO of the sports organizing company, says it would be difficult to cope post-COVID.
It looks very uncertain how
how businesses are going to fare post-COVID. So it now calls for us. We are now rethinking, becoming a bit more innovative, how to migrate our activities online. That limits the experience bit because every company wants to see thousands of people gather so that they can directly engage. But we need to use technology. I don't see how we can play UPAC on Facebook. It's not possible. So we need to see how we can now use engaged technology to make something happen. Just keep the basketball conversation going, engage people. If you need to have coaches who will do one-on-one drills, one-on-one coaching sessions, on Facebook for people to engage. It won't be the same, but if that is what the only option on the table, it's better than doing nothing. Maybe if we're able to engage right online, then we'll be able to get some budget from a company who might want to be a part of it, depending on how the public responds, how the basketball community responds to that. It will not be the same, but at the end of the day, we still have some basketball conversation going.
The COVID-19 pandemic brought innovations into institutions. Yao Sechi believes right sports must go on the same tangent to keep the interest in basketball.
It calls for re-strategizing, being innovative, and using technology to be able to still engage the basketball community, or if it's boxing, or if it's, because boxing, we are involved in boxing as well because of Azuma and the Tertiary Football League that we're planning to bring back, this year. So it will limit us, but we'll still have to find a way to go on, regardless of how big it will be compared to having people at the stadium or having people at the basketball arena watching a competition.
Basketball and boxing are all contact sports disciplines government has not eased restrictions on.
Don't forget that PM Express comes your way in just a few minutes, 9 p.m. live here on the Joy News channel, as we try to understand what exactly the impact of coronavirus would be as football returns. So do remember to tune in as well. But that wraps it up for the sports segment here on the Joy News Prime. My name is Oreku Ampofo.
And it's time now for Joy News Interactive. And of course, if you were one of those who thought COVID-19 was hoax, then you've just been told that it's real. You saw the coffins at the Awudome Cemetery there by the environmental health experts over there. Take a look.
Work that we're going through here. This is not only today. We started this from the last 7th day up to today. Today we're burying 5 at a go. We're going to bury more. We only want to alert the public. The COVID is real. And therefore, protect yourself, observe the national protocol measures to protect yourself, protect your family, and let's protect the country image as a whole.
So, of course, COVID-19 is real. Protect yourself, wear your mask, observe social distancing, wash your hands with soap and the running water, use sanitizers, alcohol, 70% alcohol, and all the things you need to do right to stay safe. Let's check the comments coming in. Joshua Sechi said the virus is very real. Please let's not play with it, my fellow Ghanaians. Horace Mensa says, so all this while, was the virus some kind of joke? Chemical Ali says, we will one day be overwhelmed, and I don't think so. We just have to do the right thing, Chemical. And Mensa says, Bosu, I beg, forward give the EC for me. Trudy Asari says, I hope people listen to you. And Wale Wa says, first class high fever in Ghana. Man Ascona says, they think it's a joke. And Nanaya Mingle says, why are they forcing us to believe them? Well, nobody is forcing you. It's a choice. You want to either take the advice or keep on doing the wrong things. But unfortunately, your family may be at risk because you will do the wrong things and go and infect them. So let's all do the right thing. And Kwabena Benjamin says, do the EC see that? Does the EC see that? And Menu Malto says, let's hear a joke. Happy Chuno says, okay, Abdullah Rabiu said, go and tell Nanado Engine Mensa that COVID-19 is real, not me. They believe it is not. And I don't think so. Emmanuel Enchi says, Okay. Also, Raf K says this kind of documentary needs to be aired in various languages. Some people still feel corona is a hoax. Pa Kwesi says, make them open that coffee now. I know what black can do. Oh, really? I see. Interesting comments there. And that'll be it for the interactive segment. And up next is the big conversation on sports returning. And of course, you know the people who are coming here with us. Even Jim Begling is on there, Carol Chabalala is there, and Carlton Cole is there. You just don't want to miss this conversation. Stay tuned in on Journey News. It's been a pleasure coming your way. Have a great one.